In the NFC, we had the 49ers clinch. They had a huge win over their division rival LA Rams. Story of this game, of course, the 49ers clawing back from that. They were what, 2-5 at one point?
Yeah, they were 2-5.
They were 2-5. They clawed their way back. They've been probably the hottest team in the NFL for the whole half of the season. And then the other storyline of this game, which I know that you'll agree with, is that Matthew Stafford, the last probably half of the season, he's played atrocious.
Yeah, you have the stats, right?
I'll pull him up right now, but Matt Stafford, the first half of the season, everyone's like, what a home run. Moved on from Jared Goff. Jared Goff is the worst quarterback who's ever played the history of the NFL. And then the last, pretty much since the Titans game, when they really started to fall apart, he's 19 touchdowns, 13 picks, 90 QBR. I mean, 13 interceptions in those 9 games. But it gets worse because if you look at his game since really just the Seahawks game right here, you got 8 touchdowns, 8 picks, 83 QBR. And this is a guy that you traded, what, 2 first-round picks for and Jared Goff?
Mm-hmm.
So that's coming back to bite him in the ass. He's going to need to perform at a much higher level if the Rams are going to make a Super Bowl push.
Yeah, the problem with that is I was on this earlier this season. I'm like, I don't know how Matthew Stafford is going to be able to perform against the NFC West rivals. He played well against the Seahawks, but Seahawks definitely a down year for them. Split with the Cardinals, where the Cardinals absolutely embarrassed them at home. But yes, they beat the Cardinals in Arizona the second time, but Cardinals have lost 5 straight games at home. They've only lost 1 game on the road, so they are basically undefeated on the road. The only game they lost was to the Detroit Lions. That was just an off game. Kyler Murray still banked up. So basically 9-0 on the road. So Matthew Stafford struggled a lot against the NFC and winning teams this year. Gets embarrassed by the Titans. Almost loses to the Brett Hundley led Ravens. And he got lucky through another pick six in that game, but last minute drive, pulled it off. Kudos to him for pulling off the victory. But Matt Stafford, extremely inconsistent. Do I trust him in the playoffs? Not really. I mean, I would trust Jared Goff in the playoffs more at this point than Matthew Stafford because Jared Goff has actually won a playoff game and got to the Super Bowl with a pretty good team. But also Sean McVay, I don't know why he's getting so hyped up early in this games. Like he was screaming in the Bucks games at halftime, and then he was running down to meet Higbee when he got the touchdown against the Niners. The Rams have not beat the Niners in 3 years. The Niners are 2-0 against the Rams the past 3 years. They lost 2 straight years. They got swept by the Niners. And then Kyle Shanahan's basically Sean McVay's daddy at this point. Ever since Kyle Shanahan's got there, the Rams have not played well against the 49ers. Past 3 years, they're 0-6 against the 49ers. Then they have to play a Cardinals team at home, but the Cardinals have shown they perform well on the road. Reason they lost the second game, Cardinals turned the ball over. Don't think there's going to be that many issues where it was the offense that was really the problem. I think Kyler Murray's bounced back. He's going to have a great game, and he's a big gamer. I mean, he went to the national championship with Oklahoma, so I think the Rams are their heads underwater. How is your defense that bad with Leonard Floyd, Pro Bowler last year, Von Miller, Super Bowl MVP, Aaron Donald, top 5 defensive player of all time, Jalen Ramsey, top corner in the league, and then you let Jimmy Garoppolo spot you 17 points, and then Jimmy Garoppolo made a ton of big throws in the fourth quarter and overtime, does not get enough credit. I get he threw 3 picks, but he still brought his team back with the torn ligament. He tore the bone off of his thumb. I mean, he's still hurt, and he had to gut it out and play, but Jimmy Garoppolo had guts in that game, and he brought them back, and I'll give him a lot of credit. And then Matt Stafford just shit his pants by throwing the interception at the end of the game. He just left it short for Odell.
I want to share some stats with you real quick. First of all, let's talk about we'll talk about his stretch that he had beginning of the season when everyone was calling him the MVP. These are the teams he beat because now the season's over and we know who was good and who was not. The Bears, the Indianapolis Colts, who at the time were
terrible.
They were like, what, 0-5 to start the season?
No, that was the game where Carson Wentz sprained both of his ankles, though. And Carson Wentz wasn't able to play the last drive. So they beat the Colts when the Colts still had a chance to come back and beat them, but Carson Wentz couldn't play the last drive. So there's an asterisk on that win.
You beat the Bucks. Okay, that was a good win.
Looking on to New England, though, mind you.
True. The Cardinals game where they got lit up, lost 37-20. Then you beat the Seahawks. Seahawks were terrible this year.
Russell Wilson went out that game. That was the Geno Smith game.
And then the Giants. Giants are the laughing stock of the league at this point. Beat Detroit, who won 3 games this year, and you beat the Texans. And then in those games, 22 touchdowns, 4 picks, QBR of 118. We're talking about the Lions, who are the second pick, the Houston Texans, who are the third pick. You have the Bears, who are a top 10 pick. You have the Giants, who are a top 10 pick. You have the Colts, who, like you mentioned, Carson Wentz sprained both of his ankles somehow. The Seahawks, who would have been a top 10 pick if they didn't trade away for Jamal Adams.
No Russell Wilson either.
No Russell Wilson either. So 6 of those 8 games, you're talking about the bottom of the league. And then, like I mentioned earlier, after that game, once when he started facing the Titans, loss. San Francisco,
Loss.
embarrassing loss. Packers, loss. Beat up the Jacksonville Jaguars. Destroyed them. Congratulations.
Cool.
Then you beat the Cardinals without D-Hop. And then you have
No JJ Watt. JJ Watt's going to be playing.
And then the Seahawks. Beat the Seahawks. Congratulations. Again, the number 10 pick. The Vikings, who are not a playoff team. You have the Ravens, who are also not a playoff team. And you barely won that game. And then this game against the 49ers. So basically, against the playoff teams, not very good. But then it gets better because then we look at his all-time playoff games. And I feel like it's important to look through them all. His first playoff game was in 2012 against the Saints. And I know what everyone's going to say. Well, he played for the Lions. Okay, well, he played 3 playoff games for the Lions, and this is how it went. Got smoked by the Saints. Completely smoked. And that was the year I believe the Saints won the Super Bowl. So they were a great team, don't get me wrong. But, like, we're talking 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, 97 QBR. Okay, not too bad, too bad. And then
How many picks?
2 picks.
Yeah, that's not good.
And then 2014, he faces off against the Tony Romo-led Cowboys. The same team that was the DeMarco Murray.
Yeah, DeMarco Murray and Des Bryant looking bad at it. Those guys are not good. And Terrence Williams. Williams.
They had Cole Beasley. Oh, shit. Cole Beasley at the time.
Jason Witten, who's borderline fossilized by then.
Yeah. So that game, not the prettiest of losses. And then the last game he played was against the Seattle Seahawks in 2016. They lost 26-6. His QBR was 75, 56% completion. So in his 3 playoff games, he has 4 touchdowns, 3 picks, QBR of 87, 63% completion.
What year did they play the Seahawks?
2016.
So their defense was starting to fall off then too.
Yeah, that was past their prime. I mean, we're looking at...
So 2014 is when they picked, and then they start to get worse and worse each year. So it's not like Seattle's defense was elite when they played them. To only get 6 points is pretty embarrassing then.
Yeah.
Plus, you have Calvin Johnson, who you still can't cover if you have 3 guys on him. Calvin Johnson is automatic double cover. Then you also, I mean, he had Golden Tate and Kenny Galladay at the same time. I mean, you can't say Matt Stafford never had weapons on his team.
Yeah, I think they just empathize for him because he plays for the Lions, they've been awful their entire existence, honestly. But I just think that people overhype him. There's Matt Stafford and Jimmy Garoppolo are the tale of 2 coins because you have Matt Stafford, who played for a poverty franchise his entire career, got away with a lot of interceptions. I mean, you look at his career and he's thrown double-digit interceptions all but 2 seasons. And one of those seasons he had 8 games, but he still threw 5. And then he played 3 games in Detroit in 2010, and he still threw an interception. So every other, you can rely on him to have a bunch of turnovers. I'm not saying he's not a talented quarterback. I'm not a hater of Matt Stafford, but you just got to be honest with everybody and just talk about it. Like, how much better is he from Jared Goff?